Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Maggie from Global Sellers. I'm joined today by Aaron Oxley. Aaron is a head of dealing and relationship management at WorldFirst. But for those who don't know what WorldFirst is a certified Amazon payment service provider that helps Amazon sellers with their currencies. Because obviously you are earning in different currencies, you need the efficient service that will quickly and efficiently convert it, or you will be able to pay to your suppliers. So WorldFirst is providing you with over 20 currencies accounts to help you manage your finances in competitive way and also with lower fees and highly and efficiently. So using service WorldFirst, which is obviously confirmed and approved by Amazon, will help you to maximize your profits and margins when you are selling on Amazon. So Aaron, thank you very much for taking time to talk to me today, because it will be highly beneficial for people to hear from you the benefits of using your services, but also how to handle different issues that they may be facing when they sell on Amazon and how to avoid the mistakes. So I did a little bit of introduction about yourself and WorldFirst, but please tell us a little bit more.
Yes, thank you for the introduction, Maggie. I think you touched on the most important pieces on our side. WorldFirst, who we are. So first of all, a bit about myself. I'm Aaron Oxley. I work at WorldFirst now for the past 8 years in the position of dealing and relationship management. As you said, we are a payment service provider. We support Amazon sellers. We support wholesalers with collecting funds from Amazon and also making payments to their suppliers. We also support companies with their currency management. We'll touch on this later with all the volatility, with the trade wars, the tariffs, etc., and the impact on the margins of the clients you work with. And what's also important, we have also further expanded our services in the marketplace ecosystem. So we actively support clients in selling potentially on other marketplaces or sourcing different suppliers in China, elsewhere, to diversify their supply base. That's just in a nutshell how WorldFirst and myself.
Thank you, Aaron. But there is a lot of more that we could talk about in terms of your services. That's why I prepared a few questions, because when people sell online, they are facing different issues associated with their activities. So I can get the most of this interview today with you. I prepared a few questions for you, so you can tell us a bit more. So one of my first questions is, and this is a very common mistake, and we've met across different events already a few times, and we've been discussing this issue. People are facing issues when they don't use the proper currency bank accounts. So many sellers, they lose up to 10% of margins when they convert payouts from Amazon to different currencies on Amazon end. And it applies sometimes also the double conversion, because they don't know that they should have the currency account in actual country of that particular currency. So they sometimes, for example, Poland could be a great example. They open Euro account in Poland, but Amazon is converting euros to Polish currency because Amazon thinks they are sending money to Poland, but the bank then is converting that from Polish currency to Euro currency because it's going to Euro bank account. So how does WorldFirst help sellers avoid this, and why is it so important to fix this early?
Okay, so the way WorldFirst got large is to assist with this issue. So what we do basically is offer Amazon sellers domiciled local accounts. So if you're selling on Amazon US, you would get a US dollar account with an American bank based in the US. If you're selling in UK, you will get a GBP account with a UK bank in UK, etc. Euro, the same thing. So when you're collecting the funds in the currency that you're selling on the marketplace you're selling, you're receiving those funds on the virtual account. And these are all on our client's name. It's not on Willfirst. So if, let's say, for example, your toy company, your company name is the holder of the account, you will receive the funds. And then with those funds that you receive, there's no conversion. You receive one-on-one. So you receive the US dollar, GBP, euro on the account. And from there, you convert you convert into zloty in the example that you said, or you can use that currency to pay your suppliers. So you're not getting the double conversion. You're receiving immediately from Amazon, so there's no conversion on that end from euro to zloty, and the bank is converting back from zloty to euro. You're immediately collecting the local currency, and then you're directly converting in one go to the local currency, or making a payment. You don't even have to make a conversion. Let's say you collect US dollars and you make a payment in US dollars to your suppliers, and you can immediately send those dollars, use those US dollars to pay your suppliers. So yeah, you can efficiently manage your cash, and as you said, it's basically profit. You're losing. If you're losing 10% margin, I've seen cases you're losing 5 to 10% of your profit margin. That's just a shame. And if you do not know this when you start, or even if you have been doing it in a certain way for an extended period of time, then it's like, if you don't get that correct immediately, then you're just basically throwing away money. And we could all use that profit margin to make more purchases, grow our company, instead of losing it through the conversions.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because like I said to you earlier, and I was mentioning that at different events as well, I could probably say that about 70% of businesses, even those that have been on Amazon for a while, they lose money on those conversions that you just mentioned, because they just don't know about that. And 10% of the margins is a massive amount of money, especially when sometimes companies, they work on lower margins but with high volumes. Yep. That it's even worse, because they are making massive amount of revenue, and 10% when they have lower margins can leave them with maybe 5 or maybe maximum another 10% of margin, which may not be enough to expand their business. So I'm really glad you've mentioned that, because it's extremely important, and something that I want to highlight, especially now when we are just entering fourth quarter. Anyone who hasn't used a currency account but been using their local bank accounts, have been losing this 10% because of those conversions or double conversions. This is the like last minute that they should make a change, because fourth quarter will make them hopefully, I'm hoping for this, a massive amount of revenue, and we don't want to lose that for Amazon to do conversion for you and make more money for Amazon through such a stupid way, because it's something that can be fixed within like a few days in terms of opening the bank account with Willfirst. So I'm glad we did mention that at the very beginning, so people can act now before it's too late. So I have second question for you. Sellers often pay for Amazon subscriptions, ads or tools in Euro, USD or GBP, using their PLN or any other currency card, which create extra cost. We did touch this a little bit in a previous question, but what solution do you offer for those sellers, clients of yours, in terms of the multi-currency cards, cashbacks, and so on?
Yeah. So here again, if you're using a PLN card and you have to make a payment in Euro, US dollar, GBP, you have to convert into those currencies. You have to check the rates you're getting. Is that the most efficient way to pay for the online expenses that you have? You mentioned the ads, the PPC, or the logistics. That's also another big one. We have clients who have come to us thanking us. It's like, hey, I didn't know that I have these expenses with these conversions. It's if you don't know, and then once you're confronted with it and you have somebody who can actually show you the ins and outs, then that's an easy way to save money. And you mentioned if you have a multi-currency card, cashback, the solution we have there. Within our platform, we offer a world card, and the infrastructure of MasterCard is used. So basically, what you can do is use the balance that you collect from Amazon, or you could top up your account, and you would have a base currency, whether it's euro, it depends on where you're based. But the system is that smart that if you have to, let's say, make your online expenses in USD, GBP, if you have a balance on that account, the card would use that balance, and then you don't have that conversion. So you would make the conversion once yourself at the agreed rates that you have at WorldFirst, and then the payments are made from the balance you have on that account. If you don't have enough balance, only then would a conversion take place. Let's say you have to pay a GBP, you don't have enough pounds on the account. If you don't make the conversion yourself, the system would then make a conversion for you, but it will be at the agreed terms you have with WorldFirst, not that you're paying 1%, 2%, 3% expenses to make that conversion. So that's one way to efficiently manage these expenses. And on top of that, we offer 1% cashback. Okay, so at the end of every month, depending on the expensive, the online expenses you paid using your World Card, you will get a 1% cashback. So all your logistics expenses, most use DHL, UPS. Anything you can use a credit card to pay. Use a credit card to pay your online expenses, the ads, Amazon ads. You might be using Facebook, Google, any ad expenditure, logistics, online expenses. You use the World Card, you get a 1% cashback, which also, of course, is a nice add-on. There's enough expenses you have elsewhere. The ad expenses, I know everything is going up. You see the trade wars, the tariffs, etc. So that's a nice way to claw back some profit margin with that 1% cashback we offer.
This is definitely a great bonus, because I don't know any other payment system provider that is offering this cashback, especially that we pay a lot by card. All the subscriptions, it can be like a few $1,000, dollars or pounds, whatever. It can be advertising costs. I think that's the biggest one, especially now for the next few months. So it could be a nice bonus at the end of the day with all those expenditures. So definitely it's something to go for. And I can say personally, I am looking into it, and I've already started moving across the WorldFirst. Especially for the ease of use and the currency card and cashback. There are plenty of benefits that will obviously make it easier for you and better to work with WorldFirst. So the third question, yes. So we've been talking about all possible levels of sellers. But there are sellers with bigger volumes, with larger revenues, and they are looking to talk to you about optimizing their fees and optimizing their currency management. Is WorldFirst offering any lower fees with higher transaction volumes or sales? Because obviously for those sellers expenses are going up, they would be looking to negotiate some rates with you. And this is, I think, it's something that they can realistically expect, because when it comes to a bigger volumes, they would be looking to negotiate rates or maybe some terms and conditions with you. How does it look like on your end?
How does it work? Okay, so off the bat, of course, if you do higher volumes, you would get better rates. It depends how you use the platform. We look at the annual volumes, the source of funds, destination of funds. So we have to look at it on a case by case basis. But definitely, just the rule of thumb: the more volume you transact through Willfirst, the better the conditions are going to be. It's a win-win. And also, let's say this year you start at a certain level and you grow with us. Annually, we also check the volumes that you transact through us. Do you give us referrals? There are many different scenarios where we offer incentives and also improve the rates as we grow our relationship. I can tell you the most clients that I personally work with my team as well. We've been working together now for more than 5 years. Okay, and all happy. I think our retention rate is one of the highest in the industry. If I look at other players, so there's, as I said, it's a case by case basis. Looking how to optimize, we have to look at the gap analysis at the beginning. What's the line of business? How you plan to use the platform, and that feeds, of course, into currency management. You are seeing the extreme volatility in the markets at the moment. Even with the euro dollar, we see the US dollar depreciating rapidly. And if you have to sell US dollars back into euro or another currency, then you're getting less back for every US dollar you sell. If you have to make any procurement, you also have to look at your profit margin. Basically, today the amount. Let's say you get an invoice today. Today the amount you have to pay. Let's say you have a lead time of 3 months. You have to make a down payment. The products have to be manufactured. It has to be shipped back to Europe. If you have a lead time more than a week, you have to lock your rates. You could say, hey, I'm not going to do anything, give or take. But the aim is, of course, to lock in your profit margins and eliminate that currency risk. So that's one point we'll look into as well, of course. The cashback, we've touched on that. That's a piece we can also look at. But long story short, in a nutshell, we have to look at it on a case by case basis, and then show what we can do and where we can optimize and tweak to make sure that we're offering the best deal possible.
I could also add from myself, never be afraid to ask. Worst case scenario, you say no or you say not yet, but on every case, every level of revenue that you have, don't be afraid to ask for some better terms and conditions, because like Aaron said, it's a win-win situation. The more money you make, the more money Willfirst holds for you in the account, and they are happy because they have bigger customers, so they are happy to negotiate rates with you based on what your revenue and your activities are. So that's my experience for like number of years being in this industry. I'm never afraid to ask, and this is a advice for any business owner. Go to your suppliers, go to your service providers, and speak to them honestly about the way you want to expand your business. And if they are serious about working with you, long-term relationship, they will always aim to help you as much as you can. And that's what Willfirst is doing, because it's based, my opinion here today is based on the real life examples that I've seen so far with them. So I highly recommend speaking and discussing your expansion. So talking about expansion, how does the WorldFest assist in protecting margins with all the uncertainty and volatility in the global markets?
Yes. We touched on this shortly in the last question with the volatility in the market. So some companies will have experience, staff with experience with currency management. Others will to a certain level or not. I think the key word here is access. Because if you're a multinational, a Shell, for example, Unilever, Volkswagen, etc., they have access to the best terms, all the currencies, the best products to protect your margins. So we talked about this using forward contracts. The support as well, the post trade support. Often not provided by other providers. It's often execution only. I think the keyword is access. If you want to, for example, pay your suppliers in the local currency, you want to fix your rates in the local currency, is that possible? Do you have the flexibility? You can fix your rate, but let's say there's always something that goes different than planned. So let's say shipment is delayed. Do you have the flexibility to pay at a different date than initially agreed upon? So that flexibility is well within those forward contracts. That's something we could definitely support the clients with managing and finding their way through this volatility, and also the information that we give. We are not advisors. We cannot say, hey, I advise you to do X, Y, or Z, but we do provide you with information, what's going on, what the expectations are, what to look out for, and make sure you protect your budgets, rates, deals.
Okay, I'm glad we touched this topic because of the current situation across international markets. Is extremely important to talk about that, especially that people are really worried about next few months. Okay, so the next question. Let's imagine we start working with you today, and how can WorldFirst support my company to grow next coming 3 years?
So that's more fun to discuss than the geopolitics, Maggie. We all want to grow. How best we can support you to grow. So what I mentioned in the beginning, we have expanded beyond just doing the payments, the currency management. On our mind, we want to grow. So there are two sides to this formula. One, let's say you want to sell on other marketplaces. We can actively support you. You have to set up through Amazon. Let's say you want to sell on other marketplaces. We can actively support you in that. We have the infrastructure in place to actually do that whole process yourself. So you could just say, I'm interested. I can provide you the products. You do the legwork for us. Mm-hmm. We can also support you in sourcing new suppliers. So you find a product that sells well. You want to diversify your supplier base. You want to see if you can find different suppliers to provide a new product, to manufacture a new product for you. We can also actively support you in that. So it's on one end, finding solid suppliers. And we have, within WorldFirst, we have hundreds of thousands of suppliers that use WorldFirst in Asia. So we can support you with that. If based on the criteria that we get from our clients, that one of those suppliers don't meet that criteria, we actively go out into the market and search for other suppliers as well. So, on the one side, you have the suppliers. On the other side, you have potential new sales channels you can actively pursue through WorldFirst.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. What I can also add from my end is your expertise in that field, because you do speak to many experts across like Amazon sellers communities. You do attend plenty of events, so your knowledge in terms of Amazon potential growth activities that are happening in this particular industry is enormous. So I've seen you talking also to Amazon sellers, advising them on different strategies. So within this industry, environment change very quickly. Rules, Amazon changes. Like Amazon 3 years ago is not exactly the same like it is right now. And up-to-date knowledge and expertise from experts like Aaron is extremely important, because you are up to date with everything and you are not making any mistakes. So going more into actions, what if someone was going to register now, which we highly recommend because we are just entering the fourth quarter, what would be the registration process? How long does it take? What documents are required? And how does it work in terms of the integration with Amazon?
Okay, so we are licensed companies, so we have to do our due diligence. We have to know exactly who we are working with, who the ultimate beneficiaries are, destination of funds, source of funds. We have to do our due diligence. But the first step, of course, is to register. That is an easy process. You could go to our website. There's a registration link. You sign up. You give the basic information that's required. Once the registration comes in, we do the due diligence. We say, this is the additional information that we require, and if clients cooperate and they send the information we require within 48 hours, we can basically have the account live. Then we have to have an introduction call. We have to, as I said, with one of the key account managers, elaborate further on how the platform is going to be used. I get a thorough understanding of the business, where we could be of added value, besides the payments, because initially, of course, that's what you would use WillFirst for, but it goes beyond the payments, and then take it from there. And the integration with Amazon across the marketplaces, as soon as the account is live, then you can immediately access all the virtual accounts that we offer. So let's say you want to sell on Amazon US, within 10 seconds you have a USD account. And that's the beautiful thing about our platform. Once we have done that due diligence, the account is live, you immediately have access to all the virtual accounts that we offer, the domiciled accounts. And they're all, we're one of the, if not the top PSP that Amazon works with. And you can seamlessly get the account and link it up to the Amazon platform, and also the World card that we offer. You can immediately also link up the card to Amazon, and then start cooking.
Amazing. So the only thing that really takes some time is providing you with necessary information about the business, which is obviously required in any bank account. Yep. Verification takes 48 hours and you are up and running.
So again, if we get the information we need, it's sailing.
Amazing. So talking about the signups, there is something that WorldFirst is offering that is amazing for people who are watching us, for people from Amazon sellers community. Going through the link that is listed here, globalsellers.pro, WorldFirst. WorldFirst is offering a few benefits for you to start and benefit. So it's 1% cashback on a card that we've just discussed today, which is an amazing offer and will help you with your expenses. €200 sign-up bonus. So that's obviously very nice for the beginning. And reduced and or free FX margins for the first 3 months. So considering now we are entering the fourth quarter, and I keep saying that over and over again, this is the right time to take advantage of it, because many businesses are not even making the same revenue during the whole year like they do in the fourth quarter. So you don't want to miss on that, especially with those amazing rates like cashback or reduced or free FX margins for the first 3 months. This is the time when you can really benefit and make more money and make sure that you expand your business based on your earnings from fourth quarter. So I wouldn't wait, because this is what we did. We didn't wait. Like, our business signed up immediately. We met Aaron at events, and we're really impressed with the level of service they are offering, the offer they have in place, the ease of use of the service and expertise that they offer. So like, I always recommend companies and services that I'm using. And I've been in this business since 2011 myself, so pretty long, and I've done a lot of things in this business, and I always try to pick the best companies that are there on the market. So I highly recommend doing this sooner rather than later. And Aaron, thank you so much for all your knowledge and information that you shared today. It's highly beneficial for people, and I really appreciate your level of expertise. So thank you very much for taking part, and I hope we'll see you again on some interviews, events, maybe some webinars together, so we can give people more insights of the industry. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you as well, Maggie, and we'll be in touch.